Yeah, so actually, Kritima, it's very interesting where startups give you more freedom.
How do you think one should approach it?
Work with the marketing team to understand.
So, hi Purva, how are you?
Hey, Kritima, all good.
Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everybody. This is Purva, and I am the co-founder of a design agency called Pen on Paper Technology. And I've previously worked at Amazon and Ola. In fact, Kritima and I worked together at Amazon. It was a glorious time indeed. So, lots of experiences from corporate to having my own company. So, yeah, I am an alumni of National Institute of Design, where I've done masters from. And I'm looking forward to having this conversation.
Great. So, yeah, you already mentioned that you have been with Amazon before this and then Ola, and now you also have your own agency. So, just wanted to start on that. How is it moving from, how do I say, like a full blown, like a very big corporate to starting on your own? And also for everyone to know, Purva is a design researcher, product design researcher, and we'll be talking about product design and product research both, because now you do product design as well. So let's start with, how did you start design research first?
Okay. So design research, actually, my interest started from my college days, where, I, instead of focusing on the actual product and the design, I was very, very interested in how the users would be using it, whether it would actually be impactful or not. And, I started asking those questions, and gradually I got to know about user personas and, tools and techniques which actually help you to identify these things. So that's where my interest started from. And I started off my journey with research as well. Doing research for ITC, then Ola, and even at Amazon. So, research is where my heart and soul is, actually. So I really like this field a lot, talking to the users, getting to know how they are behaving, why they are saying something. It really intrigues me a lot.
Got it. So Purva, but how does one start to be a design researcher? Because I don't see any, at least in our times when we did our graduation, if I may say so, like we are in a way like the first generation of design researchers. Maybe like a decade ago, maybe this field would have started. So how did someone come about to be a design researcher, start being a researcher?
So I think when design started, when this boom started happening, then a lot of focus was on the final output, right? The UI bit of it, the visual aesthetics and everything. There were UI trends and everything. But gradually people realized that, it's functionality over aesthetics any day.
Yeah.
And to get functionality right, you need to be talking to users and you need to get things right. So I think the industry started accepting research as a full-blown, category and a profession on its own. And that's how people like us, who like to do research, started getting recognition as well. So I think it stemmed from that. And if somebody has to really, get into the field of research, then empathy, I think, is the most important thing. You have to gain that empathy. You need to do it as a practice rather than just for a project. But you need to be more empathetic, be more accepting towards how people are. And I think that should help you transition into the research field.
Got it. And so, for example, for product designers, they will show like a case study, their designs and all to get into. They will start an internship. How does it happen for design researchers, or rather, how did it happen for you?
So for me also, actually, when I did my first internship, it was with Redbus, and I actually, got to meet a lot of designers on the team who were interested in research, but they did not know how to do it back then. So since I was interested, I got the project where, I was not only given the opportunity to design, but to also talk to the users, work with the marketing team to understand who are the users, what are the segments. I got that opportunity, and, I made sure I seized it, because that was where, I wanted to, that is what I wanted to pursue. So, even if you get a design project, take it up and gradually make your way to research. You can always look at a design project from the angle of users, their behaviors, and that would, fortify your understanding as a researcher.
Got it. So you're saying just take whatever opportunity comes your way and then find your path there, right?
That's how I did it. Because at that time, we were only getting opportunities in UI UX. There were no research roles as such.
Yeah.
But opportunity lies everywhere. So you have to convince your team, your managers, everybody that, something like this is very, very important. And this is how it's done. If you are very sure and aware of the methodologies and everything, you can take up a design project and you can diversify it into research.
Got it. So when you are working in these, I would rather say like mid-size, larger organization, Redbus is quite large that way.
Yeah.
So Redbus and then Ola and stuff. When you are doing your research, how do you know that you are asking the right questions to your right research questions in that project? How do you narrow down to your questions is what I'm trying to ask.
So actually, it's there's a process to it. And the first step towards that is you have to build a shared understanding with the stakeholders, with the product managers, with the marketing teams, like all the people, all the stakeholders of the company who are involved really with the project. You have to sit them together and you have to ask what do they expect from this research, and that foundation needs to be laid out very clearly. So once you have your goals, objectives, and the expectation in place, then it becomes very easy, because what I do in particular is that I break down the goals and the objectives into very clear definitions that, value proposition is one, then user segments is another, pricing is another. So you can mix up the objectives and you lay them down very clearly. So when you start tagging your questions and you start tagging your answers to those objectives, you finally reach the correct research questions and you know where to limit it.
Got it. So, and then how do you put a stop to those questions that, okay, these are the questions, so now I'm not going to ask, I'm not going to probe more, because I feel that sometimes as a product designer, I know what answer I want from the, from my target audience. So if they're not giving that answers, I have seen even like researchers or like customer success people also, right? They try to probe the user that why not this, why not that. So if you've got your answers, or if probably you've not got your answer, you know that, okay, this person is not going in the direction I want them to go in. How do you put a stop? Ki, acha, not anymore.
What I usually do is I go in to a research session with the angle of finding out new opportunities rather than getting validation for what I'm researching on. That's the first thing. Like my goal is very clear, that I am open to hearing all sorts of answers, and whatever answer they give me is a good answer, irrespective. Right? I don't categorize them as good answers, bad answers, which really helps me as a researcher, because it helps build that empathy towards the user, right? And so usually if I feel that the user has the participant has the potential of answering, but they are not getting the correct words or something, I just quickly diversify to another topic. I just divert their attention to another segment of questions, and then I go back to it after a while. Like when they've had a break by answering some other sort of questions, I usually tie it back to the question that was left out. But it's important to not lead the participants into answering what you want to hear. for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty challenging, but yeah, you need to do it consciously that you're not leading them in.
Yeah, makes sense. And then once you know your answers, you've got your answers.
Yeah.
How are you basically distilling your research findings into actionable insights? How do you know, acha, this is what I've got and this must be done? Or like, is there a collaboration between you and the PM and then you and the product designer? Like, how does it work generally?
So I use affinity mapping quite often. It's a tool that is usually overlooked, but it's actually very easy to use, and it actually helps you to code your answers very well. So like I explained, right, that I have very clear-cut objectives before I start any research project. And then even the questions that I'm asking, I tag it along with the objective that, okay, if I'm asking this question, it's going to give me an answer towards this objective, for example. And then at the end of it, I use an affinity map to actually bring all the answers together under each goal or under each objective. For example, you could ask user segment. If I have to identify user segments as an actionable insight, right? Now, about user segments, I could get answers in question number 5. They could answer it in question number 7. They could answer it in question number 9. But if I have tagged it that, this question is going to give me this answer, then later on, I can club those questions together under one affinity theme, and I could code them very easily. So that's the process that I follow to distill out the themes and create actionable insights.
And generally, first of all, I want to know what are the deliverables in a UX study generally, in the UX research, and if these deliverables differ from mostly you worked in bigger organizations. Was it different from in Ola versus Amazon? Like the process, was it different in both?
Yeah, it was very, very different because like Amazon, it was more structured, and at Ola, because it was, so I worked with Ola Electric particularly when it was just starting out, and there was no thesis, there was no hypothesis, there was no nothing to really base upon. There was no metric that we had to improve and we had to check for. So it was all very foundational. But at Amazon, what happened was that there was user research into practice. There were users, there were segments who were actually using the product. So there were certain things that we had to benchmark and check, and more of usability study there rather than at Ola. So that was the major difference that I felt. But overall, the process and the methods remain the same. The participants change, the settings change, but the process remains the same for conducting user research.
And what are deliverables?
Oh, yeah. So deliverables usually include a report summary, which very clearly defines that what were the objectives, and against each objective, what did you understand? But usually it is better to give a theme-based and a cross-cohort analysis. So I'll give you an example. So there was a project that I was doing recently, which had proactive users versus inactive users. And we were, checking the value propositions for both. So even when I was summarizing the value propositions, I was very clear in giving the cross-cohort analysis that this is what the active members need. These are the value propositions for them versus these are the value propositions for the inactive members. So it was very easy, even objectives, if you are able to categorize them and do a cross-cohort thing, it becomes very easy. So that is one deliverable for sure. And apart from that, there are journey maps. Then if you do an affinity mapping, then it's good to share it with the stakeholder so that they also understand that, these themes go well together. Yeah, I mean, journey maps, report summary, affinity maps, and even transcripts of the interviews that you take.
Okay.
So I think these are very, very important, and video recordings if possible, because there are short clippings where expressions and micro expressions make a big difference. right? Whether they say it's nice versus it's nice, there's a difference, right? So it's good to capture these small moments also.
Got it. That one more question. Do you think when someone is a UX researcher, do they learn these psychological things on the way, or do you think they sometimes like you had to really go and study it and sometimes like read about these nuances and then try to add it to your practice?
Some things I learned along the way, like tagging your objectives, and it was just what made it easier for me to collate the research summary. But things like reading micro expressions and coding the research, these are things that I learned from the Nielsen-Norman group researchers. So I actually enrolled in a course with them, and I was a part of some of their courses, online courses that they have, and it really helped me in my journey.
Awesome. Do you recommend that if design researchers are starting out, or like even if they are like in the start of their career, like 3, 4, 5 years of experience, they should sometimes go in and do these studies to understand other nuances and learn more, right?
Definitely. See, every research teaches you something new. But it's always good to keep yourself updated and upskilled. That is, I think, like a must for everybody. You cannot think that something that you learned 10 years back is going to be relevant even now. So, Nielsen-Norman Group is something that I genuinely like, and they have very good researchers on their board, and their teachers and organizers are also pretty good and cohesive. So I enroll in these courses quite often, and I would recommend it for somebody who's willing to take part in this journey as well, more on the research journey. It really helps.
Yeah. And it's also nice for even, I think, product designers to probably take maybe a couple of courses to even get, some understanding of that also helps you to understand your customer probably better, right?
Right. And it really depends, because sometimes the expectations from designers is very clear that, you execute and you don't think. There are companies who want their designers to be, skilled in one domain and not delve into the other. So it really depends. But if you want to be like a 360 designer who knows bits of everything, and then like be a jack of one, then you should learn about product design. You should learn about product thinking, and it's good to keep yourself updated with these courses.
Yeah,
it's not just for certification, right? It's for your own upskill.
Of course. Yeah. So I would ask you, what do I say, like a difficult question, which is, does it happen that you have done the research, the answer is in front of you, that what is B, our customer is liking B, please do B, but they implement A?
Yeah, it does happen. And you can't do much. Like you can, because you as a researcher, you need to put your unbiased opinion in front, right? That's the basic job you have. And then your research summary should be powerful enough to convince the stakeholders of what their users want. Like, you are the main custodian and you are the voice for the customer now. So how well are you able to convince the stakeholders is completely up to you. But yeah, sometimes they go the other way. Cannot really help it, right? They have their own business needs, and that cannot be ignored as well.
Yeah. Cool. Understood. So, okay, from now, let's just dive into your personal practice, which is your agency, your studio, right? So before I start, I want to ask, what made you move from a career, like a promising career in these organizations, to starting up on your own?
So actually, this company that we have was founded by Ishan, who is my husband. And I joined him later. I was working with Amazon, and I understood that it's good to work with corporates. It's definitely good, but it is even more challenging to work on your own. because you have no leaves, you have nobody to take permissions from, no foundations, but that's even more challenging. So that is when I decided to, quit and join him on this journey. And I became a co-founder of Pen on Paper Technologies, and it's been challenging, but it's liberating in its own sense. Like having to make decisions on my own, having to set up calls, talk to clients, pitch the business, sell the services of the company. It's very, very liberating and feels good. Yeah.
No, but so when you joined, how old was the agency already?
It was 1.5 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
That means the business was already in place. Did you guys need like an extra hand, or like did you think that okay, if you join in, you will expand?
So actually, the projects were in place, but the processes were not in place. So with the corporate experience that I had, you know how Amazon is, right? We have FAQs and we have written documentation and roadmaps. And that is a practice that I brought to my agency as well, which really helped catapult the whole thing, because when processes are in place, when you have like the methodology set, you have timesheets and everything, it just becomes easier to track and manage, and everybody has a clear goal of what they are trying to achieve. So that is something that I brought to the agency, and it was good to see that you could apply the learnings from corporate to a startup as well. That was good. Yeah.
Amazing. And when you joined in, now I believe you're doing a lot of like product design work. What kind of projects does Pen on Paper Technologies take in?
So our main forte is UI UX, where we take up mobile apps and revamps, branding, logo design, all of these projects. But our main focus has always been UI and UX, and we have mostly worked with young startups, funded startups who need that design expertise at the beginning, right? And we work like design partners. So the projects that we have are relationship based, if I could say it that way, where once people get onboarded, they work with us for like years. So we work as design partners, and that's the main chunk of work that we have.
So is now when you're working with these smaller startups, the people who are starting up, sometimes you just have to execute what they are saying, and then sometimes you also have to iron out their ideas and really give them what they are asking for, right? In all of this, do you ever get opportunity to do any kind of research for them?
Yeah, so actually, Kritima, it's very interesting where startups give you more freedom, right? Because they are not from the design domain. So we have worked with almost all domains now. We have worked in healthcare, we worked in the EV technology, the AI technology, banking, finance, everything. And what I've realized is that somewhere corporate clients have a fixed agenda because they are tracking certain metrics. So they want you to work in a certain way. But for startups and for young funded companies, it is very interesting to work for them because they just have an idea in mind. And we are the ones who actually conceptualize their entire product thinking. We put in a lot of research as well because you don't really have anything to benchmark it against at that moment, right? So actually startups and mid-sized companies give you a lot more freedom to do user research because they find value in that much, much more than the corporate clients. This has been my personal experience so far.
Okay, so from doing like a full-time researcher's job to now and going in a way like a full-time, you are a business owner, but I can still say that you have moved to doing product design work, UI UX design work. So how was it taking that switch also, like domain switch, research to a product designer?
So actually at NID, we were taught both aspects, design and research and strategy. So I am from a strategic design management master's, where we were taught all of these things. So I had some sense about design. I knew how to work on Figma. I knew how to work on Sketch. But research is something which I felt more connected to, which is why I took that forward. But being a company co-founder, you are required to wear many hats. And design work just came naturally to me because I was actually leading other designers and taking care of the deliverables, managing the project, managing timelines, checking quality. And the other designers were the ones who were actually executing those designs in practice. So I could still heavily engage on the user research side, where I could guide them from the user perspective, and they were the ones who were actually designing the products.
So your experience of all these years basically also helped you, because a person who worked, like, the maturity in you as a individual came in, as a employee or employer also came in. So that's how it helped you. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, all my experiences so far have really helped me, in some way or the other. And I have picked up from all, they have been major takeaways from all the corporate work that I've done. And it's really helped me with managing my own teams and managing my own company.
Understood. So now, Purva, if someone wants to start their own UI UX smaller startup or an agency, what are your just general tips that you would give? That start, how do you think one should approach it?
Okay, now that's a tough one. Because there's actually no set way to do it. What some people do is that they start taking on freelance work, and when they have more and more clients on their own, they quit their jobs and they take that up full time, and then they do the company registration and all and everything. That is also the right way to go, because you need a stable income. You cannot depend only on freelance projects. But I would say that if somebody is really serious on starting a design agency, the first thing to do is make a network, connect with people, because in today's world, like, network is your net worth, right? That's what they say. So if you have more connections, if you have more people who are from the same society, from the same design field, it becomes much more easier for you to set up an agency, set up a practice, because you know that you have work coming. And obviously the corporate work that you've done, you cannot show it as your company work. Right? You need to be doing some work for your company that you can show. So I mean, it's better to pause and take a step back, see whether you can really do it, and take a chance. Basically, it's a leap of faith, really. But if you have connections, if you have a good network, then it makes it easier.
Yeah, I agree. And how do you basically get newer clients, or how do you market yourself, I would say?
So for us, it's 90% of our projects are referrals, who are people whom we worked with before, people who know us, come back to work with us or refer us to other founders and other visionaries, because the services that we provide are of a good quality and we deliver on time. So it's a good experience of working with our agency, and that's where 90% of our projects come in from. The remaining projects come in from our leads to our website mostly, and also through channels like LinkedIn, because whatever work I do, we publish case studies and we publish online. And when they see that, we promote it also sometimes, and we get clients from there as well. But that's just 10%. 90% of the times it's word of mouth and the good things that people say about our work ethic and the work quality, and that's how we get more projects.
So if someone has today say that I want to start my own agency, I also have a corporate job, but now I think, okay, now I need to probably step down from my job and start fresh. I can't show my company's work as my work till now.
Right.
So how do I start? Like, how do I market myself? Should I make some hypothetical case studies? And who do I pitch myself? Who is what I'm trying to say.
So basically, you start doing some groundwork yourself. Like you said, hypothetical case studies, but it need not be hypothetical, because redesign is something which is very, very in now, which many people are doing. So you take apps which need a redesign, right? Like Spotify. Now, recently, you can understand that YouTube Music and others have really gained popularity over Spotify. So if this is a challenge that you can take, and you can really ask the users who were using Spotify, who have switched, or some recent users of Spotify, you can really make a project which is not hypothetical. It is a real life situation, but you can do it even without, it being a paid project. So initially you will have to do some things like this, but I would suggest that instead of doing hypothetical projects, it would be good if we take real life problems and do something about it. Because when you put it on social media and you tag these bigger clients, and sometimes they do take notice, and it reaches more people, and that's how basically your work reaches more people. There is too much work to do. There are many problems that we can solve, but definitely if you're starting afresh, then real life problem solving is much, much better than
hypothetical. No.
Yeah.
So another thing is, Purva, that you are a business owner and you are a designer. Generally, what happens, some people are very, they are gifted, they know how to work, how धंधा कैसे चलाते हैं जिसको कहते हैं, ठीक है, और कईयों को पता है कि काम कैसे करते हैं, ठीक है. 2 टाइप के लोग होते हैं और फिर और भी टाइप के लोग होते हैं. मैंने ऐसे नोटिस किया है कि sometimes some people are very good with like doing that work and giving you that finesse, but they don't know how to market themselves. They don't know how to price their work, and they don't know how to basically hook the client in. कि I can, जो क्लाइंट को चाहिए वो मैं बना सकती हूँ, पर क्लाइंट को मैं बोलूँ कैसे कि मैं बना सकती हूँ, you know? So these are some problems like a designer. मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जैसे हमारे डिजाइन एजुकेशन में तो सिखाते ही नहीं है ना हमको कि करना क्या है.
मार्केटिंग नहीं सिखाते हैं.
हाँ, सिर्फ पोस्ट करना is not enough, I feel. Marketing also, I think business sensibilities भी नहीं सिखाते हैं, मतलब कि प्राइसिंग कैसे करना है, how will we get recurring projects and stuff like that. So my question is, अब मैं अपना एग्जाम्पल देती हूँ कि मैं कभी जब फ्रीलांस करती थी पहले, तो मैंने इलस्ट्रेटर पे अपना इनवॉइस बना रखा था. फिर 1-2 बारी जब मैंने किसी के लिए कोई रेकरिंग काम किया तो मुझे इतना डिफिकल्ट लगता था टू गो बैक थ्रू इलस्ट्रेटर, ओपन, चेंज द डेट, चेंज द प्राइस, ऐड. लाइक अगर मेरे पास मेरा लैपटॉप मतलब अडोबी नहीं है मेरे पास, तो मैं नहीं कर सकती. Challenges, can you talk a little bit about these kind of challenges that you faced being a business owner and a designer, or like, I don't want to say just a designer, like a person who's not been taught how to do this and or wasn't in this, because you're an corporate employee, you didn't have to do any of this before.
Yeah, actually, I actually got this opportunity as well at Amazon. So when I was working with Amazon Academy, I got to work with a lot of vendors for whom I was making the contracts, and I was actually making the MSA, the Master Services Agreement, and generating PO numbers, and helping them with invoices. So I got that opportunity at Amazon. In fact, when I was working there, I used to feel that why am I doing all this stuff? I am a researcher. I should be, just doing research. I didn't know how it's going to help me, and it really did. So there are some nuances of business that I picked up from Amazon, definitely, because I got that opportunity of working with vendors and working with a team, which really made it very transparent. So all the discussions about business, about work and pricing and all this work was very, very transparent in my team. So I got to learn a lot from there. And when we started with this agency, then we used to have very custom pricing. Okay, if I'm designing for a friend, this is what I'm going to charge. If I'm designing for a corporate, this is what I'm going to charge. And I used to give very random custom pricing. But gradually we realized that it's not going to work that way, because everybody knows everybody and they talk. Talk that, how much did this agency charge you for something versus how much did they charge us, and that's where it all goes wrong. So the first process that we actually brought into place was building a standard pitch deck where we have all our case studies. We have a standard pricing that, okay, website revamp, this is the cost. Monthly retainer, this is the cost. This project, this is the cost. And we charge the same to every client that we have. Because we want to build that stability and recognition, and even word of mouth, is very, very important. You cannot go wrong with it. And regarding invoicing, I think we were also generating manual invoices earlier on Illustrator. Then we moved our manual invoicing to Sketch. But when Figma came into place, we realized that we cannot do this. And I got a subscription of Zoho. So Zoho is, a blessing because it allows me to just add customers and send invoices, send recurring payments, right? Like everything is consolidated in one place.
Yeah.
So those processes need to be set, but that realization also came by trial and error in the case as well.
Yeah, because I've known a lot of these discussions keep happening, right? So design karna is one thing and just karna is another thing. तो मतलब अगर बिजनेस और डिजाइन वाला जुड़ जाए तो शायद गुड मैरिज हो जाएगी, बट नहीं होगी अगर तुम ये बोलते रहोगे कि मैं अपने डिजाइन अपने क्या कहते हैं क्लाइंट को इतना फिनिश्ड और इतना अमेजिंग ऐसे करूंगे, तो भाई बैठे रहो फिर,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's difficult to convince the clients just by showing the future कि हम ऐसा बना देंगे. So sometimes what we also used to do is we used to create projects for every domain at the start. So we had one project for banking and finance. We did one project for AI technologies. It was very new at that time, but we thought that it's going to gain momentum. And at that time when COVID hit, then EdTech was a major boom, right? So we took up a normal problem, an everyday problem, and tried to solve it through design. And those were some of our initial projects that we did on our own. But then when an EdTech actually reached out to us, we had that project to show, and we showed them the capability that we can do something much better for you because we have done some work in this domain. We've done our groundwork, we've done the research, so we know. And that's one way of convincing your clients.
Got it. So what is the one advice that you would give to a UX designer who wants to join in, a UX researcher who wants to start out, or either of them who wants to start an agency?
Learn how to design for others, because it's not always about you. Like I feel that when we study design, like when we are taught to make decisions on our own. We are taught to define something, that why do we like certain things, why do we don't like certain things, and gradually that makes us feel that we know everything. हमने जो कह दिया वो सही है, which is not always right, because your users might be different. You are not the user. I think that's one common advice that I would like to give to everybody, that you are not the user. So
absolute gem जो आपने बोला, बहुत सही बात.
And so if you're open to that fact that you might not like blue, but the user likes blue, and you have to make something in blue, I think it's okay.
Yeah. And someone who wants to start up on their own, go on from this designer in a corporate to like starting on their own.
Build your network. It's tough. It's really, really tough. There is a chance for everybody. There's an opportunity for everybody. Take that leap of faith. But before that, just make sure that your network is strong enough to support you. Because you cannot do it on your own. Unless and until you know people you can reach out to for work, you will always face that struggle, because marketing is not everything. Network, people, connections, your personal, what do I call it? Like your personal reputation, right? It all matters when you are starting up new, because people talk about you, people talk about your work, your past work, everything is talked about. So if you want to start up, then go for it, but make sure you have a good network to support you.
Yeah. And one more thing, Purva, आपको कभी ऐसा लगा कि I should have started earlier? Or do you think कि ये matter नहीं करता, ये सिर्फ bias है?
मैं इससे early नहीं start कर सकती थी. I've always been like, I'm not taking a break. So right from college to master's, then marriage, then first job, second job, third job, fourth job. It's been like a continuous process. So when I felt ready, when I felt that I have enough experience that now I can give some experience to my company, that is where I quit and I joined this. So I think whenever, at whatever point you have that realization that you have enough experience to support something new, I think that's the right time for you. It's like age has nothing to do with it.
Well said. Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much, Purva. Thank you for your time. I think मैंने आपको बिल्कुल सांस लेने का मौका नहीं दिया. Next. For everyone to know, we've been planning this for more than like 5-6 months, and every month we just try, okay, this Friday, this Saturday, but then we couldn't, and this time I was like, nahi, aaj karke hi rahe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we spoke. This was a really, really, interesting session, because I rarely get to talk about, these challenges. I mean, there are some takeaways for me as well from this session.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Ritumra.
No, definitely. In fact, I feel that these are some questions which, agar मैं आपको generally मिलूंगी, I will just start to talk about general life and stuff. Small little question and ask, how's work? How's it going? Everything's good. What kind of projects? And I'll move on. But these questions, even when I know you personally, I sometimes what happens is, Purva, why I started this, I will tell you why I started this podcast is because I feel that we shy away. I myself will shy away to ask you कि क्या आपको लगा था आप पहले start कर सकते हो? You'll be like, what is this on coffee? She's asking me. Sometimes I feel this might be very intrusive to ask someone these questions. But what happens? Still, I would need these answers to probably take some decisions for myself, or like many others like me, many others like you. We would need those answers, but and
how do you ask?
And हाँ मतलब कैसे या फिर मतलब you need to learn how to do it, or probably someone has to ask those for you. So I feel that it's important to see, you were in Amazon, you left Amazon, we were talking, all of this happened, but I never got to ask you. Probably it was always in my head, oh, she started on her own. We were talking, I was commenting on your projects also, I was looking at those projects, we were talking, but we never, I'm always wondering, but we never get a chance to ask, right? So
right.
That's why this was started. Cool. So
no, it's a great thought, Kritima, because there are many people talking about design now, which is a good thing, which was not there earlier. But talking about relevant things is also very important. That these are some things which are very, very life and personal experience oriented. Some things that you asked me, and I think it's important to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel that some questions I asked you, maybe another friend is asking me. The right person to give my friend the answer is you. But if I'm going to give him the answer, then it's colored by my thought also. That मैं सोचती हूँ कि वो ये कह रही होंगी. But then if he hears it from you, then it's, it's better for him also. Yeah. And another thing I want to say is, like you said, that more and more people are joining design now. What happens is that हम लोग ना बहुत ही high agenda रख लेते हैं, एक celebrity designer किसी के बारे में सोचते हैं, and we feel that is unachievable for us. Or maybe this person had so much privilege, or this person had lucky था ये बंदा, lucky थी ये, कुछ ऐसे बोलते हैं random. So my idea is to probably get normal, like everyday people like us who've made it, like who started somewhere, slowly were somewhere else, and then traversed and gone somewhere and done something of our own. Like everyday people who really in those, like who are in these corporate. कोई हो सकता है बोले कि अरे ये लोग तो Amazon वगैरह की बातें कर रहे हैं, but we also started somewhere, right? Like we also
Yeah, and we also worked for it, right? We cleared the interviews, 8 rounds of interviews we cleared, and then we got it also. Yeah, we were lucky there. Our work spoke for us, which is why we were selected. So I mean, it's okay.
Yeah, cool. So thank you for your time, Purva, and have a nice weekend.
Same to you, Pratima. Thank you so much. This was good. Thank you.